Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, Patrick Donoghue here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal. Thousands of farmers are still waiting for their GLAS payments, and there has been a series of protests by the ICSA, the IFA and the INHFA this week against the delays. Peter Varley was at the IFA protest on Monday, and we start by hearing from IFA Rural Development Chairman Joe Brady.
We're all here today just out of sheer frustration. Farmers right across the country signed up to a scheme in the majority of cases back as far as April and May 2015, almost 2 years ago. And in many cases, these farmers haven't received any payment yet. It's totally, as the President said, totally unacceptable. Farmers had planners to pay the incurred costs, let it be wild bird cover, measures of fencing, all the different options that you could take. And in reality, all those costs are incurred in the first year. So it's totally unacceptable. And I would be saying here today, we were told back in December we would be paid before Christmas. Then most people, 20,000 plus people got paid between Christmas and the New Year. There's still almost 10,000 people haven't received their payment yet. If there's an issue with the IT in the department, I would be saying here today to make the payments, pay out the 85% and sort out the issues with the IT system in the next 2 or 3 months when the people are paid. When reps were introduced first 20 years ago, people were paid their payments up front in day one, not 2 years later. So that's my message to the department. They pay now and sort out the problems later. Thank you.
Peter Varley here from the Irish Farmers Journal. We're just outside government buildings and I'm joined here by Enda Monaghan from County Galway. Enda, you're an organic farmer but you're also in GLAS. Have you got any of your GLAS payments yet?
I haven't got no organic payment or no GLAS payment yet.
Okay. How long are you in organics and how long are you in GLAS?
Well, I'm in GLAS since I started there a year and a half ago. I'm in organic for 13 years. 13
years. But you got no 2016 organic payment either?
No.
And how has this affected your farm or your cash flow?
Oh, it's affected me big time. I owe money to the banks. I had a payment to be made in the end of December. I was assured by the department, I met with the department through the organic representative body in November, and they said all payments will be paid if you got your single farm payment. So I had got my first part of the single farm payment at that time, so I thought there was going to be no problem. So the middle of December comes and some of our organic lads hadn't got paid, and I made my inquiries and they said it's an IT problem. It won't happen, they said, before Christmas, maybe coming towards the end of December or early January. So I left it until the middle of January and I got on to them. When I gave them the details this time, they discovered that I had got an overpayment last year, and they said your 2016 payment is sitting ready to go, but their IT system cannot work out how to knock off the overpayment. So I'm still here today. It's the same thing. GLAS is something similar. It's through no fault of mine. They talk about efficiencies in farming. There's absolutely no efficiencies in the government department. They get holiday pay, they get sick pay, and they can just leave everything there, and we have to suffer the consequences.
So they leave everything sitting there, in your opinion, during the Christmas, and they don't mind that maybe you've bills to pay or loan to pay off?
No, they all went on their holidays and had a happy Christmas, and we were struggling and embarrassed to meet our contractors that we owed money to.
What sort of outcome would you like to come from today's protest?
I'd like to see more respect for all farmers. There's over 400,000 people working in the public sector, and there's 125,000 farmers, and there's nothing thought of us. And I'd like to see, there's only 2% of the population farmers, and we're feeding the other 98%. It's the same across Europe, but there's no legislation to protect us, but they're all protected. And they talk about the 50 billion single farm payment. There's something like 3 trillion paid out in public sector pay and in social welfare right across Europe. That's all public sector, it's all taxpayers' money, but they're all protected by legislation, but the farmer is not.
Thanks very much. I'm joined with Paddy Denning outside government buildings. Paddy, can you tell me why you're here today?
I'm here because I didn't get my payment for 2016. I'm hoping that the department will be able to pay this out immediately, even if there is deductions to be done afterwards or some things to be sorted out afterwards. I think the farmers need to be paid on the day, because it's not just the farmer that needs the money. It may be the local merchant, it may be the bank, it may be a money that's owed somewhere, the farmer owes money somewhere that he needs to pay a bill. So it's very important to get it into the system.
When did you join the scheme? Was it in GLAS 1 or GLAS 2?
GLAS 1, and I have got my money for the last 3 months of 2015. That came during the year 2016, but there has been no payment made in the year 2016, and we've got no feedback from the department on what the delay is or what it may be, even if we could get some feedback. But I think at this stage, we're now at the end of January, beginning of February, we need the payment to be made and let any issues be sorted out afterwards, because it is a 5-year scheme, and if there is a problem, there will be time there for the department either to sort out the problems this year or into next year.
And Paddy, one final question. Did you have to undertake many actions over the last year and a half since you joined the scheme?
Well, yes, I have 3 actions done. I have the low input pasture, the hedge cutting and low emission slurry spreading, and I carried out all 3 of them. I've completed all the tasks there.
And that's been all at your own cost?
That's been all at my own cost, and at this stage we have been out money and we have had nothing really has come back in. Yes, we did get the 3 months of 2015, but that was only a partial payment of a year, so it wouldn't really near cover the cost of what we were out for the first term anyhow.
Perfect, Paddy. Thank you. I'm joined with Pádraig Corcoran from Lecaro in County Roscommon. Pádraig, can you tell me about your delayed payments?
Haven't received anything, no explanation of why it hasn't come. According to my planner, everything is in order and he sees no reason why the payment shouldn't be made.
Okay, and when did you join GLAS?
I joined GLAS in early 2015, but it would be GLAS 2.
Okay, and had you to take up much cost in doing the different actions during the year since you joined?
We had a huge amount of expense involved in it with contractors, with fencing, we done the wild bird cover, and you had all your purchase of your seeds, your bird boxes, bat boxes, sand, you name it, stakes, wire, fencing, everything. So it has been quite expensive, with a lot of money put in and no return.
No return. And have you got any feedback at all from the department as to why payments are being delayed? Or?
No, it's very difficult to even get through on the phone now, because probably they're inundated and have been for a long time, because a lot of payments delayed this year, but the GLAS is the one that has extended.
And what would you like Minister Creed to do now?
Just get and pay the money that's owed, because people have borrowings and commitments to be repaid, and it's a scheme there that there's a maximum of 5,000 on my case to be paid out, and you have your commitments made, you have your contractors paid, you have suppliers waiting to be paid, and you have planners, and even it's not just a once off. You have your nutrient management plan and all them things, and lime and everything, and you have all them payments to make up front, and it's all money out on top of a very bad year for returns on all the other commodities as well. So it needs to be done, and just pay it and get on with it.
Thanks very much, Pádraig. Joined here with Pat O'Shea from County Kerry. Pat, tell me, why are you at the Dáil here today outside government buildings?
Well, we're at the Dáil here outside government buildings today because of the lack of the department in paying farmers money that is due to them. And my phone is hopping every day over people that is totally annoyed over not being paid their GLAS payment. And what I'm hearing from them is that if farmers don't meet deadlines, they are penalised. And why the department doesn't have to meet any deadline, and there's no consequence for that. This is farmers had to do certain activities to get into this, to get paid if they are out of pocket over this. They've been promised payments. Last year the payments were cut all together and they just paid a part of it. This year we were told the payments would start in December, and they haven't. And there's over 9,000 farmers yet in the country who haven't been paid at all yet, and it's just not good enough, and the department need to get on and get payments out immediately.
And you joined the scheme in 2015, isn't that right?
Yes.
And you've only got how much money?
€400.
Only €400.
€400.
So what would you like the department to do now? What would you like the outcome from today's protest to be?
Well, from today's protest, they better take it serious, because if they don't, that there will be far more. This is only a token protest here today, just to tell them that we are concerned about it. There isn't much anger out there, and giving them a chance to do it and get payments out immediately without any further delay.
And if payments aren't made?
If payments aren't made, well, this is only the start of what's going to happen. The farmers will not tolerate, and they will not stand for it any longer.
That's perfect. Thanks very much, Pat.
That is all. Thank you.
Joined with Peter Murphy from Glenmalure in County Wicklow. Peter, you're a commonage farmer in County Wicklow.
Yes.
Have you got any GLAS payment yet?
No, we've got no payment at all yet. And
when did you join the scheme?
we joined it early in the year, well before the closing date, submitted all our forms, everything is perfect.
So you submitted all your forms, your commonage management plan, and you signed it and everything and you still haven't got payment?
Everything is in order. I actually bought ewes to build the minimum stocking rate for my commonage and doing things right, I think.
Doing things right and proper management of the commonage.
Yes.
And you've went to a considerable cost to do that, and still no payment.
No payment.
What would you like Minister Creed to do today as an outcome from this protest?
Well, I'd like him to fulfil his commitments and pay the men what they're owed or whatever.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
We've demanded that the Minister act immediately and get seek permission from the Commission to pay the farmers what they're owed. Immediately. And I think that's crucial that he does that. And we'll do what we can to lobby the Commission and lobby the people in Brussels to allow that to happen. Because there's a number of schemes in place, and it's the amount of schemes that has been started in the last period of time that's causing the extra pressure. There's IT problems, there's personnel problems that has slowed the payments. Now, we've also got a commitment that there will be a run every week, and that farmers, as soon as they're cleared, will be paid, and that run will be made every week. What we couldn't get a commitment on were the numbers that would be cleared every week. So we would love to be able to come out here and say that the 9,000 farmers that has to be paid all the time will be paid in the next week or two. We can't say that because the department people we met couldn't give us a commitment that would happen because they said it's a slow process, but that's why we insisted then that the Minister write to the Commission immediately to allow for the 85% to be paid out to farmers. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, that's more or less where we are on it. We'll keep the pressure on the Minister and on the Department to ensure that the maximum amount of people are cleared every week so that we can get the numbers at the highest possible levels for those run of payments at the end of every week. And look, if there are real hardship cases, I think it's very important at county level that we get those people and we get them into to Jerry, and he can forward those hardship cases onto the department in the hope that they'll be treated as priority as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very sincerely for travelling from absolutely every part of the country here today. It's not easy, it's a big commitment, but it's something that has to be done, and we'll follow up, we'll keep the pressure on. Hopefully we won't need to be out here again, but we will insist and ensure that as the farmers are getting cleared, that payments goes out to those, and in the meantime that the Minister seeks permission to pay all farmers what is allowable straight away, and then work on the problems and maybe the issues that affect each farmer's application. All right. Oh yes, and also we asked them inside to communicate with farmers, just so that farmers know that they're not forgotten about. That okay, farmers haven't got their money yet, but that there is work ongoing, because we made it very clear that kind of lack of communication and the vacuum that was there, and farmers not knowing, look, have they lost my application, or is it in there at all, or what's happening? Is there any money in there? There is money in there. We asked that question, and I know that it's important for a lot of you, because farmers have said it to me as late as last night. Is it the fact that there's no money there that they're trying to delay payments? We were assured that there's plenty of money there, but that it's the delays with the various issues as they're arising. So we impressed upon them to communicate with the farmers by text or whatever, just so that the farmer appreciates that he's not being forgotten about. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll keep in touch with you. Thanks again for coming up here, and safe journey home. Thank you.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Ahead of the protest, Agriculture Minister Michael Creed acknowledged the difficulties and said that the department was working to resolve them.
How's the Evans here, news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal. I'm here with Minister Creed at a meeting in Wicklow. A wide range of topics covered tonight, not least of which was Brexit. Maybe we'll start off with GLAS. There's payment delays and things like that, and you're saying that there'll be a payment clear at the end of this week, but it will take a number of weeks to sort out the rest of them.
Yeah, look, I'm acutely conscious of the impact that these delayed payments have on farmer finance. And it's disappointing that we're in a situation where, having successfully addressed the problems that were in the basic payment scheme last year, that we're into this issue with GLAS. I've met with the key people in the department on both the IT and the admin side, and we're applying every resource we can to resolve the problem. I'm acutely conscious of the problem that it is, and I'm working, very hard to try and resolve the issue.
Is it a case of manually putting them through?
No, it's not. I mean, it's a case, to be honest with you, of almost a bespoke software solution to, small bundles of problems, of applications to get them in, but we're working on it.
On the ANC side of things then, again, farmers brought it up tonight as a way of maybe supporting them through Brexit. What stage is the new maps at?
Well, it's not just a case of supporting them through Brexit. It's just an important issue. I mean, 75% of the country is designated. There's a process underway. Technical group working on it, looking at all of the lands in the country against this newly established criteria by the Commission. So that work is underway. We haven't any maps from the department yet. It'll be another couple of months before we'll have those.
Another, on time for June, or
Well, I mean, the deadline that we're working to is we have to have this process finalised for farmers who are making their 2018 basic payment applications. I'm satisfied we'll have it solved well in advance of that.
On the TV side of things, obviously a big issue for farmers here, and as you said, the number of reactors is going down, but in Wicklow it's going up. What are we looking at there?
Well, I know this, and in fairness to my colleague Andrew Doyle, Minister of State, he has been very active in this area. I mean, I suppose I particularly concern myself with the bigger picture, first of all, and that's absolutely going in the right direction in terms of the number of herds and the number of animals that are affected. Any individual farmer who has a problem with this is a particular, impediment to profitability and proper farm management. So there's a particular problem here in West Wicklow. Indeed, some would say in the whole of Wicklow, and it's deer related, so that spills over into the Department of Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht in terms of deer cull, etc. And there is a working group that's trying to address this issue, and I know Minister Doyle is active in the area. I hope we can solve it. We are appointing additional staff in the department locally based here in Wicklow to deal with the issue.
From your side of things, do you think the Heritage Bill will be passed?
I hope so. I mean, we are a minority government. There are voices that would be strongly opposed, to say the least, to what we propose. But I think bringing our arrangements in line with what applies in neighbouring jurisdictions, which is compliant with EU law, albeit we're only doing it on a pilot basis, is, I think, the right thing to do. It's, for many farmers, a land management tool in terms of land eligibility, and I think it's the right thing to do, but we have to wait and see. I mean, as I said, we can't take anything for granted, and the dollar still it. So we're working to try and see if we can build a coalition around this issue.
And then next week, the meeting of stakeholders on the National Reserve. Where do you see that going?
Well, I'm waiting for the stakeholders to make a recommendation. I mean, one of the big challenges in Irish agriculture, and indeed in the context of the next round of CAP negotiations, is going to be generational renewal. Getting younger people into farming. So a reserve, encouragement for young farmers is important, and I hope that at the forum that they can acknowledge that and make a recommendation.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast.
Last Friday, the Irish Farmers Journal organised the Navigating Global Trade Conference to discuss the effect of trade agreements and Brexit on the markets where we all sell our agri-food products. Our agri-business specialist Lorcan Allen was there, and he met some of the speakers, starting with Board Bia's new Chief Executive Tara McCarthy. This was her first public appearance, and Lorcan asked her if the target to grow our food exports to 19 billion by 2025 was still realistic.
The 19 billion target was an ambitious target from the beginning, and it still remains a very ambitious target. And when I was talking at the conference today, what I was looking at was what would we need to do to achieve that target. So we need to start a game changer in how we're approaching our exports. We need to maintain our focus on the UK.
And, I suppose Brexit has thrown a spanner in the works, but how in the international side of the markets, how can we grow those markets? Where's the real potential, do you think, for significant growth?
So we're taking a dual approach. We are by no means walking away from the UK market. We believe it's fundamental that we maintain a serious focus on that market and look for every opportunity to maintain our close connections with our customers over there and to really understand the consumers in that market. And that should be a huge opportunity, we believe, and maintaining our places there. But just as importantly, it's about understanding what's available and where in other markets. So where are our dairy opportunities?
Another speaker was Aidan O'Driscoll, the Secretary-General of the Department of Agriculture. I asked him how his department had worked to defend Ireland's position in Brexit talks so far.
We've been engaged with a huge number of people, both in the UK, in the Commission in Brussels, and among other member states in the EU, since, in fact, before the Brexit referendum, but obviously particularly since the referendum. What we've been very anxious to do with them is to, first of all, explain how much skin Ireland has in this game. Some of them already know that. Some of them have no idea, and are we have to educate them to explain how important this is to Ireland. Then we have to explain to them what we want in the process of a negotiation. Now, we're right at the beginning of a long and difficult negotiation, but we have explained very clearly that we want to continue unfettered access to the UK market and that we want to keep that as a valuable market. Some of them would share that ambition because they also export into the UK markets. Others would listen a little bit politely because they don't have the same degree of skin in the game. The market isn't as important. But we have very good relationships right throughout Europe, especially from our presidency in 2013, and we are leveraging all of that right now.
So how is Brexit looking? We asked European Agriculture Commissioner Phil Hogan for his reaction to British Prime Minister Theresa May's wish to exit the EU single market and enter a free trade agreement with Europe instead.
Negotiations haven't started, but I do know that the Minister, Michael Creed, has been making strong representations to Mr Barnier's task force in relation to all of the issues that are important in agriculture. And I know he's been making everybody now realises the importance of agriculture in Ireland, I can assure you, and on the island of Ireland, where we have 43% of our total agricultural exports go to the UK. The next nearest is 22% from Cyprus. But the value of our exports of €4.5 billion is huge in percentage terms, and that's recognised in Brussels. And I hope that in any trade negotiations that will be recognised to the extent that it will be able to mitigate the potential damage that could be done for any particular hard Brexit.
The UK Prime Minister has a very clear wish list of what she wants to get out of the negotiation. Will the European Union facilitate that? Because in the interest of free trade or continued trade as free as possible, it would be in Ireland's interest that was the case, and yet that would violate an awful lot of the basic EU principles on freedom of movement of people, on supremacy of the courts, etc.
Well, I note what the Prime Minister said in her speech, which, as you rightly describe, is a wish list, where she's going out of the single market, potentially going out of the customs union, and she will be negotiating on the basis of a free trade agreement, which takes a little bit of time, as we know. It took 7 years to do the Canadian agreement. So I think that the wishful thinking certainly will not land too well in terms of negotiations initially. But as we get into the trade negotiation side after the Brexit, the British exit, I hope that we will be able to have a meeting of minds, because trade is important for the European Union as well as the United Kingdom.
Finally, let's hear from Sir Lockwood Smith, New Zealand's ambassador to Ireland. He said that his country is also facing Brexit risks.
I think I should be clear, New Zealand's preferred position originally was that the UK stayed in a reformed EU, and when reforms that were needed to keep the UK really in didn't materialise, we always worried that the referendum might go the way it did. But you've got to be pragmatic, and I think there are wins to be had here. And the biggest win for this part of the world is, in my humble opinion, the UK being able to now take a place on the world stage arguing for the value of trade liberalisation at a moment in history when it's under threat.
Mm-hmm. The UK, as a potential market, can you sell more dairy into the UK market from them leaving the EU, or more lamb, or,
and risks for New Zealand.
Okay.
And risks for New Zealand. Goodness knows how all of this will pan out. And we hope, as you heard both Phil and John say today, we hope to be negotiating an FTA with the EU this year, and we hope the whole Brexit carry-on doesn't get in the way of that negotiation too much. And then we've got our future with the UK eventually to negotiate too, and who knows how that will end up. And so, but our approach is we want to see both the EU and the UK come out of this well, and Ireland too. And we recognise, I personally see the particular interest Ireland has, because you are more severely influenced by all of this than many of the other EU member states. And so for UK, EU and Ireland, I think there's even an opportunity in Ireland here to explore some of the final solutions between the UK and the EU. If they work for Ireland, they'd work for the whole of the EU.
Correct. We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
The race to become the next president of Macra na Firma is open, and one of the candidates is Odile Evans from County Wicklow. She spoke with Una Sinnott at her campaign launch last Friday.
I'm joined now by Odile Evans, and Odile is planning on going for the Macra president, and you're a candidate in this year's election. I'm here tonight at your launch. How did it go for you, and did you enjoy it?
I have to say I've been amazed by the amount of people that came tonight to support me. Friends, family, Macra members from counties near and far, and it's been overwhelming. It went really well. I hope now that going forward we'll have a really strong campaign team behind me, and we'll travel the country.
That's brilliant. Now, can you just briefly describe your history with Macra and your involvement in the club?
So I suppose I grew up on a dairy farm in Wexford, and my father was often telling me stories about his time in Macra. So when I turned 17, it's only natural that I joined, really. And so I was club secretary not long after I joined, and we went on that year to win the Club of the Year. And that's a national title, and it's something that will stand to us forever. We'll never forget it. It was absolutely amazing.
And that's Johnstown, Kilgraney, Macra.
Johnstown, Kilgraney and Wicklow, yeah. And then I've represented the club and the county in a lot of different competitions and things. And as well as that, I've taken on county roles. And I've also then been national vice president for the last 2 years, and I've been national treasurer since May of 2016.
Okay, so you've seen a lot of things happen within Macra, and now that you'd like to lead Macra, where do you see the future of Macra, and what would you like to change and improve?
Well, the objective of our organisation is to promote and foster the development of young people, more specifically young farmers, and so for me that is the key part of why I'm running, because I want to make sure that the personal development that I have gained out of Macra remains there for generations going forward. As well as that, we're there to develop agriculture, as I said, and the key plank within Macra and its foundation is education, be it educating young farmers through our young farmer development groups, or even when you're on the National Ag Affairs Committee, going out to Brussels or meeting the Minister for Agriculture. All of that is an opportunity for a young farmer to bring their voice to the national stage, and it is a phenomenal organisation to be able to do that with.
Okay, and how in particular would you see yourself improving that situation or helping things?
Well, I suppose, I've got a really integral knowledge of the agricultural sector, a good working relationship with those in it, and I think that's important for a president coming into a time where we're dealing with issues such as Brexit, the CAP reform. I'll hit the ground running in that regard, and you have to be able to bring people together and bring people with you from other farm organisations as well. And we are the future of agriculture as young farmers, and the decisions that are made today will shape us for the rest of our lives. So it's important that we have our stamp on those as well.
And now, who is up against you in this election?
At the moment, there's one other candidate declared. His name is James Healy, and he's from Muskerry in Cork. There's nobody else at the moment, but the 28th of February is the closing date for nominations, and after that, all throughout March, we'll be doing hustings. So we'll have 2 in each region. We'll have 2 in Leinster, 2 in the Northwest, and 2 in Munster. And it's an opportunity for members to come out, hear what we've got to say, what our policies are, and question us on those. And then the voting will be concluded by the 4th of April.
Okay, well, the very best of luck, Odile, and a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Una.
You're familiar with Odile's name from her work with the Irish Farmers Journal prior to the campaign. She is now on an unpaid leave of absence from the Farmers Journal, and you will hear from other declared candidates in the coming weeks on this podcast.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app, and on iTunes every Thursday.
The North-South Electricity Interconnector is a bone of contention between Eirgrid and farmers along the route of the proposed pylons. The Power Grid utility held its annual conference last Thursday, and Irish Farmers Journal news correspondent Amy Fitzgibbon went along to interview Eirgrid's chief executive, Fintan Slye.
So, Fintan, last month on board Pleanála gave the go-ahead to Eirgrid for the southern element of the North-South Interconnector, which will connect the electricity grids of Ireland and Northern Ireland. This will result in the construction of almost 300 pylons in Meath, Cavan and Monaghan, and there have been strong objections to it by farmers and landowners, and even Regina Doherty, the government chief whip, has said that she would back civil disobedience over its construction. So can I just ask how Eirgrid would respond to comments such as those from the government chief whip and how it's addressing landowners' concerns?
Thanks, Amy. So we were delighted last month to get the planning permission for the southern element of the North-South Interconnector. Now, it is only one of the number of permissions that we need. I suppose the other key permission that we need is in Northern Ireland, and the oral hearing or the public inquiry for that commences towards the end of February. And that's a process then that will run through most of 2017, and we hope to get a decision towards the end of 2017. And I suppose that affords us the opportunity to continue to engage and consult with and talk to people on the ground and to address some of those concerns that people that you mentioned, the community groups and landowners have in relation to the North-South Interconnector. And we've put in place a number of additional initiatives over the last while to try and help us do that. And I suppose what we'd look to do is to redouble our efforts in that area over that period, over this year, if you like, to work with communities and locals and landowners to address those concerns.
And I mean, what would you say to people who have, for example, health concerns about high voltage cables, linking to leukemia, brain tumours, that sort of thing?
I suppose the first thing is, we're a semi-state organisation. There is no way we would do anything that would damage people's health. We comply. There are Irish and European guidelines with respect to EMF. We comply with all of them. In fact, electricity comes in very, very significantly below any of those thresholds. They were recently reviewed at a European level by the Scientific Committee, the CENER report, and in Ireland, the government only last year commissioned an international review to make sure that the guidelines in Ireland were in line with best international practice and reflected the most up-to-date scientific information, and they do, and that report was published by them last year. So, we operate the system well within all of the international and national limits to make sure that it is safe. And this is a 400 kV overhead line. There are 400 kV lines already crossing the country that run from Moneypoint to north and south of Dublin, and obviously there's electricity infrastructure right across the country today.
And just to go back to Regina Doherty's comments, that's quite a strong statement from the government chief whip to say that she would back civil disobedience. She mentioned the fact that Eirgrid made some changes to the planning application during the oral hearing last year before notifying landowners and the public. What would you say to an allegation like that?
So, we hope that we'll be able to work with people and communities and that there won't be any issues of civil disobedience, and that we can address people's concerns. In relation to the oral hearing and that, all of those issues were brought up before the independent inspector. In fact, the two independent inspectors that ran the oral hearing ran for over 9 weeks, and all of those issues were debated and discussed at that and addressed by the independent inspectors and taken into account in their overall evaluation.
Just to then talk about undergrounding, I know you said it would cost more, and also there's the issue of the alternating current being better than the direct current, which would be underground. For Grid West, for example, you've looked at the option of undergrounding, so how come you can't look at the option then for the North-South Interconnector?
So, you mentioned alternating current versus direct current, so maybe just to talk about that. So for long, and we're talking here, more than 50 kilometres, in the case of north-south it's 140 kilometres. For circuits, high voltage circuits at that length, you can't go underground end to end with alternating current. And alternating current is the current that's in the entire electricity system today. You need to use a different technology, which is called direct current technology. Now, we use it, we're familiar with it, we installed it for the interconnector to the UK, where you have to go undersea for 200 odd kilometres. So we know the technology, we're very comfortable with it, and it is appropriate in certain circumstances. Therefore, if we were to underground the North-South Interconnector, it would have to deploy HVDC, high voltage direct current technology, and that means a very large converter station at either end, and then a cable or multiple cables between those 2 points. That has a number of issues if you did it. The first is cost. And there have been several examinations of the cost of undergrounding. We commissioned a very detailed route-specific analysis from the bottom-up engineering design of an underground system, and all that is published and available. In addition to that, though, the government also commissioned an international expert commission to look at the cost, feasibility and cost of undergrounding, and they reported to the Oireachtas committee, and that was discussed there, and their conclusion, not our conclusion, their conclusion was that it would cost 3 times as much to underground it as to over it. So cost is obviously a factor.
It's a factor that can be overcome, I suppose, given the level of public anger against it. Maybe the fact of the current is more important.
Well, so I suppose cost is one issue, and I suppose if that cost has to be paid by consumers at the end of the day, so you are increasing the cost of energy, that will affect everyone in their homes and in their businesses, and it will also affect the competitiveness of Irish business if you're upping the cost of electricity, and this at a time when businesses, a lot of them are under serious pressure because of uncertainties due to Brexit, due to sterling devaluation, etc. So I wouldn't take lightly the fact that if you impose such a huge multi-million additional cost on electricity consumers, that's without impact. But the other point is, technically it is a very different solution, and one that is less good. So you'd be paying an awful lot of money for something that's nowhere near as good, and it's not good for a number of reasons.
Partial undergrounding wouldn't be an option.
So partial undergrounding with alternating current you could do for a short stretch of 5 or 10 kilometres along it, and we indicated that as part of our planning application that could be done. It requires a compound now at either end of that underground, so you need to now start building compounds. You can go underground for 5 to 10 kilometres, but you're adding multiples of cost to it. But for short stretches of underground that can be done. But that didn't come back and as an answer. And all of when we engage with the local communities and all that, the feedback is never that you should underground this section.
Right.
And no one has really made a case that a specific section should be undergrounding. The feedback we get is really end-to-end undergrounding. But the other part of it is that because it's a very different technology, the DC technology, you can't tap into it to support development along the route. So if we look at what's happening today, we see a lot of data centres coming along, a lot of foreign direct investment that is very energy intensive. And those companies are siting their facilities directly underneath high voltage transmission lines so that they can easily tap into them. If with our proposal of a 400 kV overhead line, that would open up that whole area to that sort of type of development. With a HVDC underground cable, that just becomes massively cost prohibitive, hundreds of millions in order to do it.
On a practical level, provided it gets through the planning application in the north, and then you're successful if there's a judicial review or anything like that, on a practical level, how disruptive will the building be to landowners? How close will it be to the homes?
So as we routed the line and we did all of the work, and as we engaged with people, we tried to make the route and the siting of all of the pylons to minimise that disruption and to maximise the distance from people's houses. And one of the things that we want to do now is continue to engage with, in particular, landowners, I suppose, where there is structures on their land or indeed even lines crossing over their land, to work with them to minimise any of that disruption. There's a number of things we're doing. One is where you have a structure on your land or lines crossing your land, there's compensation for that, because obviously there's a very direct impact on your land. The other thing we've done as part of this application and project is to put in place a community gain scheme, and that is 2 elements. One is a community fund, which is available to organisations along the route for investment in things like sports clubs and things like that. And we've rolled that out elsewhere, and it's very successful, and that will be of the order of €4 million along the line. The other part of it that we have as well is, though, proximity payments. So where your home is within 200 metres of the line, there is a payment to recognise the fact that while the infrastructure impacts on the wider community, yes, and there's a community fund, If you're living closer to it, there is a more immediate impact, and that there's a scale of payments, and it's set out, and it's a sliding scale that runs out. So if you're at 50 metres out to 200 metres, and it slides down the further you're away from the line. So those two things, and that's a package of 10 million euros between the proximity funds and the community fund, and then in addition to that as well, if you have a structure on your land, that's another part of the element as well.
Okay, so for example, could you put a figure on how much compensation a landowner would get if the construction was, say, 50 metres away from their home?
So for residences at 50 metres, the payment would be 30,000, and then it slides down on a sliding scale out to 200 metres.
Okay, well, thank you very much for chatting with me, Fintan.
No problem. Thanks, Amy.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
The Better Farm programme has connected Irish Farmers Journal readers with beef farmers working hard to improve their profitability for several years, and is about to enter its third phase. To find out more, I sat down with our beef specialists Adam Woods and Ciarán Lenihan. Adam, to you first. What is Better Farm, for those who don't know what it is?
So, Pat, the Phase 3, I suppose, is taken on a different mantle. It's called the Better Farm Challenge, but BETTER is an acronym for Business, Environment and Technology through training, extension and research. So it's all about, I suppose, transferring simple technologies onto beef farms to try and increase profitability over the duration of the programme. Things like grassland management, breeding, animal health, financial management, things that can be implemented at any farm across the country. These aren't special farms that have been picked as being representative of I suppose, the national status of beef farms. We have farms producing weanlings, farms finishing cattle, farms producing store cattle. So people can relate to these farms. They're on a variety of different soil types. They're across different counties. They're basically a farm in every county. So the idea is that the technologies or the changes that we implement on these farms can be implemented on any farm across the country. So if you go to visit this farm, there's nothing stopping you, I suppose, implementing these things on your farm.
How did you go about selecting these farmers?
So it's a joint partnership between Teagasc and the Irish Farmers Journal, and basically we went through Teagasc advisors. So Teagasc advisors would have nominated clients of theirs that they feel were suitable for the programme, and we went and visited a lot of the farms along with Teagasc advisors to determine their suitability, I suppose.
What were you looking for, Ciarán?
We were looking for the right person, Pat. You know, we didn't want to go onto a farm that was already doing fantastic, and likewise we didn't, I suppose it didn't really matter what farm performance was like at the time, because like chances are the average Irish farm could do much better. We were looking for a person who was willing to take on the challenge and who was kind of, you know...
So you're not looking for the top 10% here?
No, God no. We're looking to represent what's out there. And what's out there at the moment, it's not blowing us away. Like, you know, performance is not fantastic out there. We visited, I suppose, 70 or 80 farms probably between last July and I suppose up right until December till we picked our final one. Along the way we sat down every couple of weeks with the whole team and, you know, went through every county when it was finished and picked out. We'd 3 or 4 in some county we'd more. Some were very tough, but we have the 27 now and we met them for the first time together last night.
Staying with you, Ciarán, Adam listed out what Better Farm is about: improving breeding, improving financial performance, grassland management. What is the one thing, or can you say such a thing, what is the one thing that is just wrong on Irish beef farms at the minute?
There are lots. I suppose the first thing you could pick out is the potential we get from the potential of grassland and how far we are off that. There's dairy farms in the country growing in excess of 14 tonnes of grass. The average beef farm probably grows half that and utilises 5. Like most beef farms got double stocking rate in the morning and from right at the same land area.
Adam, look, you farm in an area that's probably a bit more challenging on the ground than a lot of others. Is it possible for these type of farms on the more marginal areas, heavier ground, hilly areas, to grow the type of grass that Ciarán is talking about?
Look, maybe not getting to maybe 12, 13, 14 tonne, but definitely on every farm there's improvements to be made, and that's, we'll say, goes from soil fertility, maybe liming land, reseeding a little, maybe in terms of improving the productivity of swards. And look, at every farm has dry areas that can be grazed, maybe early or late, and it's just about managing around that. I suppose it's you can't just throw in the towel because you're farming on a heavy soil. Like there is areas that that you can definitely improve. And it's not just about grass, I suppose. We've huge issues in relation to breeding, in relation to suckler cow type across the country, in terms of having real functional cows on farms and that are producing, we'll say, calves every year, producing heavy weanlands. Around health, I suppose, health management, and around financial management, cash flow, and we want to really delve into this on this phase of the programme in terms of cash flow management on dry stock farms. That we want to look at peaks and troughs during the year, because if you take a guy selling weanlands, maybe a guy with 50 cows selling weanlands, his cash flow basically starts in September, October time. Single farm payment comes in October, single farm payment comes in again in December, and you have a dry period then till the following September again. So in terms of managing that period through the whole springtime, through buying fertiliser, through paying for the contractor, it's a huge area that we want to really look at in this phase.
How do you do it? Like, because traditionally the autumn weanland sales are exactly that, the autumn. They kick off in August and September, they peak in October, and they're downhill from that. By which stage you're getting your second round, the single farm payment. Like, there isn't the market generally to sell your weanlands in February or March or April.
It's not, but if you had 20 or 30,000 coming into your account in October or November, it doesn't mean that you have to spend it in December, I suppose. You have it in the account and you need to budget, and that's, look at the farm plan. It's a very simple farm plan that we develop for these farms, and a part of that will be cash flow management, showing that, look, you need 5,000 to carry you through April, you need 6,000 to carry you through June, and it's just about, I say, portioning money out during the year. We can't go about saying, right, we need to sell 5 weanlands in January, 5 weanlands in February, 5 weanlands in March. It's about managing, and it's about selling at the most appropriate time, and that's really important in terms of the plans that we develop for these farms, that they're selling at a real appropriate time. So in terms of maybe high beef price, maybe high weanland price, if they're producing export type weanlands, we'll try and get them out before the glut of weanlands comes out. I suppose little things like that, little tweaks. It's no big massive changes to these farms. It's all simple things and do them well.
Like, I suppose the research for beef farmers generally hasn't been there. Why is there a need for the Farmers Journal and GLAS to come together for this type of thing?
I suppose that has been a criticism of beef research in the past, that maybe we do things in Grange, or we do things in Johnston Castle, and farmers will inherently say that, well, right, it's okay for Grange to do that, it's okay for Johnston Castle to do that, but we're really bringing it back down to the very grassroots, so that if we do something, or if we practice early graze on a farm in Leitrim, well then, if a guy's living 3 mile up the road, well, there's no reason why he can't do it. So it's bringing research back to the very grassroots and back to the basics, and it's about applied research. It's not about, we'll say, airy-fairy figures in a research centre. It's about real farm data and what's really happening on farms.
Kieran, turn to you. How long does this programme go on for? When does it kick off in earnest? How will we track the progress? And again, when does it all come to a conclusion?
Yeah, I suppose it officially kicked off last night, Pat. There's going to be 3 full-time advisors on the programme. Alan Dillon, who was manager of phase 2 there, the last one that finished up in 15, and there's 2 guys just hired. There's Tommy Cox and John Greeny. Both of them have come out of Teagasc. So they're going to get, the 2 boys are going to get 11 farms each, and Alan Dillon will take 5. They met their farmers last night for the first time, and I suppose it kicks off now with the advisors in the next few weeks, getting to know the farmers, starting to do visits and putting a plan together for the next 4 years. In terms of where people can look at it, we're really going to push hard with coverage this time around. We're going to do lots of videos, lots more podcasts, kind of make it into a more attractive package to consume, present the info in a simpler way, introduce new things like forums and things like that. I suppose the Better Farm programme itself has taken on a kind of a new medium, in that we have broken it down into 10 individual challenges, and where all farmers will obviously push to hit the targets that come with efficient beef production. There are 10 challenges that a guy will pick from a number of these. There's a couple of ones that every guy will do, compulsory challenges, and then you have things like, I give example of a few of them. You have the 2-ton grass growth challenge, where a guy increases growth by 2 tonne. You have the farm finance challenge, which deals with cash flow and overdraft management, which Adam mentioned. You have breeding challenge, where we want to get guys to hit all the breeding targets that ICBF have outlaid. Then you have soil fertility, farm safety, mixed grazing, and then we have things like labour and farm structure. So we're going to put a focus on labour. I suppose we're going to focus more on the farmer this time around, because there's an individual behind all these margin figures and stuff. So, you know, look at his labour and things like that, and I suppose hugely important thing, and ultimately come up with a return per hour on the farm.
Adam, these are the type of messages that you want Mrs. Murphy, Mr. Murphy to say, look, the better farmer up the road can do it, so I can do it too.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose, look, we can look to the market for price increases, but we really need to sometimes look within the gate as well. I suppose we can't expect the market to return all profitability gains on beef farms, and definitely, I suppose, if everything is right in relation to grassland management, breeding, then you start to look. We'll say you can start to bang the table about, we'll say, increasing beef prices, but it's hard to do that unless you have everything, we'll say, tip top inside the gate. And there's equally maybe as much benefits from technology transfer within the farm gate, like grassland management, everything, than there is from maybe getting a 40-50 cent, we'll say, a kilo beef rise in terms of carcass weight. So it's about both, I suppose, and it's about implementing changes on the farm that'll maybe make these farms more sustainable, make them more profitable, and hopefully the next generation will see this and maybe, we'll say, refresh the industry coming on.
Lovely stuff. Lads, thanks very much. You can read more about this, the third phase of the Better Farm programme in this week's Irish Farmers Journal, and you can follow it, I suppose, throughout the course of the thing on farmersjournal.ie. Lads, thank you very much.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
Finally, our property editor Shirley Bustede has a juicy story in this week's Irish Country Living. An estate in County Wicklow has just come onto the market and is one of the largest land banks to go on sale for many years in this country. Consumer editor Ciara Leahy asked her for more details.
Hi, my name is Ciara Leahy, Consumer Editor with Irish Country Living, and I'm here with Shirley Bustede, our Property Editor. Now, in this week's Irish Country Living, there's big excitement in the property market as Shirley is writing about one of the biggest land banks to arrive on the market in Wicklow. Shirley, can you tell me a bit more about it?
Yes, Ciara. Lugala Estate in Roundwood in County Wicklow was just onto the market last week through David Ashmore from Sotheby's International Ireland and through Nick Crawford in Dalkey. And what this is really is, it's one large estate of 5,000 acres. Mm-hmm. It will be one of the, looking back over the years, one of the largest land banks that have come on the market in the last maybe 10, maybe plus years. It comprises mainly of mountain land. It's predominantly mountain land, acres and acres of mountain land, but it also includes roughly about 300 to 350 acres of grazing land.
Okay.
About 180 acres of lake, and roughly maybe about 240 acres of commercial forestry. But in the main, it's kind of, I suppose, actually Lugila means hollow in a ridge, so it's actually the actual main house overlooks Lough Tay, and then you've all the mountain land up around the sides of it.
Fabulous.
It's extremely scenic. And what it contains, apart from obviously the 5,000 acres, you have about 16,500 square feet of residential accommodation, which takes in 2 principal houses, and it also takes in about 8 cottages or lodges scattered throughout the estate.
So what kind of customer would this ideally suit?
Not for the faint-hearted, Ciara, because the guide price is 28 million.
Right.
It's not a farmer's farm by any means. But it really, I suppose, the agents will be targeting the international market at that level. And particular, I suppose, those kind of estates over the last number of years have particularly been targeted by US and UK buyers. So I suppose the particular thing about this estate is, it's been used by its owners actually to, you could say nearly like a retreat for poets and for composers, for musicians. It's like a retreat nearly to just relax and find inspiration for your writing.
So it's really multifaceted.
Exactly, yes.
Absolutely. And you were saying, I was reading that it's connections to the famous brewery founder Arthur Guinness.
Correct. I suppose it makes it even more unique. It's actually owned at the moment by Garrett Brown, and Garrett Brown is actually the great-great-great-grandson of the famous brewery founder Arthur Guinness. And actually Garrett's grandfather Ernest Guinness bought it in 1937. He bought the property, and what he did, he actually bought the property as a wedding present for his daughter Una. So he gave it to his daughter Una, who actually embraced everything good about Lugila. She actually introduced the whole concept of making it a retreat for composers and musicians, etc. And she and her husband later passed it on to their son Gareth, who continued to open the gates to composers, musicians. And it has, it has featured, I suppose, famous singers like Bono, Van Morrison, Mick Jagger, and it's also been kind of the basis it's been captured in a number of films such as King Arthur and The Nephew.
Right, so it's really a very unique property. And I suppose, with this Calabra, it's, as you said, it's one of kind of the few to come on the market in the last 10 years. What other kind of major farms have arrived, over the last few years that were really sparked as much interest as this?
I suppose maybe we look more at a farmer's farm, I think, Ciara. Apart from, you'll always get big, huge you generally get big kind of portfolios of forestry land. It could be anything from 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres plus, but that's solely forestry. But if we just look at farmland over the last number of years, even just last year, one of the biggest farms came on the market in County Donegal, which was on Greenon Estate, which extends to 2,400 acres, and within that then there's about 1,700 acres of really good productive land. It's predominantly reclaimed land. The remaining 700 acres is lake and foreshore. So this will be an extremely well known estate in County Donegal, and again Savills are handling that one, and again I suppose they're targeting international market, because the guide price there is about 17 million.
Right, okay. And
then just very briefly, even within the last 2 years, we'd Kilcooley Abbey down in County Tipperary, which extends to about 1,280 acres, and we also had Coolatin Estate in Shillelagh in County Wicklow, again about 1,200 acres, but predominantly those two properties are nearly all forestry.
Right.
They have about 950 acres of forestry and about 250 acres of land. So, we're not short of, I suppose, big estates, but it's hard to get a real farmer's farm.
Absolutely.
Of that size.
Speaking of farmers' farms, while we have you here very quickly, we, here in the office, we see Shirley with her head down because land report time is coming up. I know there's going to be a lot of coverage about the land report when it's actually published, but, can you maybe just give us a brief indicator of what we can expect from the land report reflecting on the last 12 months?
Yes, I suppose, Ciara, it's going to be very similar to other reports. What I'm working at it at the moment, I'm trying to get obviously as many transactions as I can, and that's the key to it. The more transactions I get, the more accurate it will be. And I have to say, in fairness to the agents, they've been very, very generous with their information over the last number of weeks. What we can expect is probably just, to our surprise, the supply of land to the market may not be back as what we expected. Okay. Even though things were a little bit slower and sluggish last year. The supply might not be back, but I would, it's an early stage yet, but at this stage I would say that the amount of land sold last year will be back, will be back compared maybe to other years.
Okay.
So again, I don't know, I'll be putting the finishing touches to it over the next couple of weeks, so hopefully
absolutely
we'll get it out in time.
And the publication date is?
It'll be out hopefully the second week of March, which is it'll be out Thursday the 9th of March.
Excellent. So we will definitely have you back in here to discuss it in real detail then. Shirley, thank you so much for your time.
No problem, you're welcome.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.